GPL software for some reason or something like that. So we've tried to strike the balance and find, do you know Richard Fontana?
I know his name.
You should get to know him. He's a Red Hat now. He was with us, and he helped draft V3.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and he's a patent attorney as well, and was very influential in a lot of patent clauses. And I think his ideas of how to do it were right, and I think we've done a pretty good job.
I think the GPL has a better patent defense clause than CPL, for instance. Or
I'm not a fan of those patent defense clauses at all. Did you get enough to write an interesting article at least? Just over listening? I mean, you're welcome to
I'm going to do video.
Okay.
I should have videoed your discussion just for you. That was good. I blew that. But these are good. I like this. I like the little synergy and the fact that you guys are on the same page.
I mean, I think we probably have disagreements, but I think that fundamentally, I see your analysis as an academically honest analysis of the clauses, and I think it's accurate.
Yeah, I wasn't an advocacy piece. I was just trying to do a discussion analysis.
Yeah, of course, yeah, and I think it achieved that goal. There was nothing you didn't say anything I disagreed with by and large. I mean, there might have been a few minor points, but I think it's probably right. I'm troubled by the idea of the outsourcing model, and I don't want to see it go to non-GPL most of the time, because I think the customer benefits most from having the GPL rights go back and forth, and the vendor benefits too. It's sort of
people recognize that. People have recognized it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of your problems are going to come from agreements that were in place before they realized the GPL was going to be a fact.
Well, that's or they even now. I mean, if you go to an outsourcing presentation where they talk about the best practice in outsourcing, they say the best practice is have a representation that there's not going to be any open source distributed by the vendor. Well, like I said, every outsourcing agreement engagement I've ever seen, the customer has a ton of open source code that they're delivering to the vendor to maintain. So already they've forced the vendor to violate that representation.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that just has to change practices.
Is the patent nuclear war really real? We're going to expect it.
Yeah, I mean, I think
regarding the forces with like open innovation network, everyone's.
Well, I mean, I think that those kind of things will mitigate, right? The thing is the idea and mechanisms of software patents are fundamentally incompatible with the traditions of open sourcing for software, and it always has been true. It's just the case that because the patent attacks always go to deep pockets, that the individual developer is not really affected, right? So if I sit on my weekend and write code and upload it to an SVN server somewhere, it's highly unlikely, probably almost impossible, that I personally am going to be sued for patent infringement when I implement a patented idea. The person who's going to be sued is the company that goes to, the SourceForge or Savannah, takes my code, puts it in their product, and then starts shipping products. So, I think it's less likely in the internal use case.
The trolls are going after them.
Yeah, it's harder to find out specifically what reads, and I mean, obviously they can find it in discovery, but trolls want to settle quickly, so they don't want to have to go through a long discovery process to verify that there's infringement. That's why it's so much easier for them, I think, to attack distributors and to look at the product on the marketplace.
Well, they're attacking distributors, but they're also attacking hosting companies.
Yeah.
That was I thought you were going to say that your ISP that you hosted or uploaded that to would be the one that they would go after.
Well, I mean, if it's just code sitting on a repository, it's probably not, it's not make, using, and selling. It's once that code gets put into a product, and it could be a hosted product, right? Of course, but I think this is why there was so much focus on the patent issue in V3 process, because this was the biggest worry of what would happen. It's always been a worry, and it just gets worse all the time. But on the other hand, I think eventually business method patents are going to get severed from other types of patents. I mean, the only reason we really have such a strong patent system is because of the pharmaceutical industry. And eventually some sort of realization is going to come that these people who hate patents so much are going to be a lot less angry when there's no software patents. And the pharmaceutical company can go off and patent all the chemicals they want. So at some point, I mean, that's a whole other fight and a whole other community. But on our community side, in the free and open source software world, eventually I think we'll find a moment where software patents aren't there. I think it's going to happen in my lifetime, actually.
Would we see that as legal utopia, where the pharmaceutical industry could secure their investments in R&D and have a long-term patent?
Oh, I wouldn't call that utopia by any means. But what I think needs to happen from a policy conversation standpoint is to actually discuss this as separate policy issues. The pharmaceutical patent issue is a substantially different policy discussion than the software and business method patent issue. And they are not severed conversations. They are happening, and this happens in the copyright regime as well, right? The discussions about Disney-style copyright and MPAA-style control of copyright is not severed from the question of software copyright.
Although both are bad.
Well, both are problematic, but the thing is that there are two different types of works that we should be debating the legal mechanisms that are controlling them separately. And instead, it's being debated, basically the debate's being controlled by lobbyists who are funded by the MPAA and the RIAA. So we don't have that conversation going on. It's true in the copyright space and the patent space. We're not having a software legal infrastructure policy discussion in this country at all. And I don't know when that's going to change. I think it might change on the patent front soon, but I don't know when. I don't think it probably won't change on the copyright front in my lifetime. So, and the thing is, this is why the GPL exists, because it's fighting against that system by using it to the best of its ability to make a different type of world.
What's your take
on copyrights? I think the breadth of copyright has expanded over the last 15, 20 years. I say as an example for copyright. I think it's absurd that the length of copyrights continue to expand. And it has a chilling expression, not just effect on expression, right? Music is actually different now than it was 18 years ago. Rap is very different now than it was 18 years ago because you can't sample anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it used to be sampling itself was an art. Now you have to just speak over one song. But leaving that aside, it's killing industry. I mean, I don't think there would have been the dot-com bust would have been what it was if the Napster decision had come out the right way. I remember thinking back in 2000 that the Ciscos of the world are just putting their heads in the sand, doing nothing about this. The best thing that they could do for their industry is to fight the studio's efforts on the suit tool, because nothing's going to drive broadband adoption like being able to download music and video.
And hard drive size adoption. So, I mean, hard drive sizes are directly proportional to that. That's why nobody needs a 500 gig hard drive.
So it should be Max during Cisco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's a really good point. They say that the Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique could not be made anymore because of the comprehensive
most any documentary made before 1990 could not be made now.
Yep.
Because they would have to obfuscate most of the screen, anything that had any kind of logo on it. Yeah. That's why when you watch just about any reality TV show, right, they obscure all the product names, right, because of trademark infringement concerns, etc., and all the license fees that would have to be paid for it. I mean, there's report after report after report about people not being able to produce documentaries with footage that they've obtained over the years because there are samples of songs and other stuff. Yeah.
That's viral.
Yes.
More so
Subterranean Homesick Blues, the video that Bob Dylan did for that. Couldn't be done now. I mean, look at all the product placements in that.
Streets in New York with deep pockets.
I'm not supposed to be saying this. I'm an intellectual property lawyer.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear somebody say that. It's with a law firm. It's always good.
Jeez.
So yeah, but I mean, from the point of view, I mean, I think those sort of Creative Commons, Larry Lessig type of points that I think you're making. I mean, that's sort of a broader question, and the issue of the software copyrights it's actually a very narrow place where we could actually have a very clear debate, and it wouldn't be such apocalyptic in its badness, right? If we were just debating the copyright on software and how long it should be, and should software be patentable, and asking those questions just in the software industry. If we could actually formulate that debate in a political way, that would be a very useful change in policy. But that's not going to happen because these various different legal mechanisms for controlling things of creative work are being fed in the case of the copyrights by Disney, and in the case of the MPAA by Pfizer. I'm sorry, case of by the MPAA on the copyright side and by Pfizer on the patent side. Right, so we're not, people who are doing software aren't able to get into the political debate because of the way the lobbying structure works in the U.S. and say, let's talk about what the rules of distribution should be for software and what legal mechanisms should be in control of software and how they should work together. Because there's no point to have a Disney-style copyright system applying to software or a Pfizer-style patent system applying to software. But it is anyway.
And for the simple-minded, it's just entirely too complex. at this point to even wrap your head. Like if you're a politician in D.C., they can't even separate software from pharmaceutical to patenting at this point. It's not part of the discussion.
There are also companies within the software industry who have a vested interest in the patent system. So.
And they're picking up their lobbying base, you would think.
Well, yeah, that's actually I would view that as a side effect of what happened, right? Because as the patent system got larger,
it started to hit them.
They had no choice, but right. I mean, so if you look at the history of take Microsoft for example, where Microsoft has no patents, right, and they're opposed to software.
It's
patents.
an interesting thought. It's an interesting thought experiment. If you were to remove pharma from the equation, would the big software vendors still be insistent on some kind of patent protection? I think what you say is quite plausible. I think the question's still a little bit open. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's
certainly if there had never been this type of patent protection in pharma, it wouldn't have happened. Now that the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I mean that's the tough part, right? And this is why I'm pointing to the history of Microsoft, right? Because you see Bill Gates.
Do you want water?
No, I'm good actually. Don't feel like you can't walk up and get a cup of water. Like if you take, for example, Microsoft's position in the early -- is against software patents. Like Bill Gates has all these statements where he's proposed. Yeah, they've always been fans of copyright. But they're against patents because they don't have any, right? So they spend the entirety of the 1990s getting as many patents as possible, and you turn around, and now that's their biggest weapon they want to use to destroy open source software is their patent pool. And they're big fans of getting lots of patents and having the patent system be very broad. So it's a question of, once you're a have, you hate the have-nots, and when you're a have-not, you hate the haves. And that's how the patent system is played out. And now we're in this situation, and it's very hard to think of how unilateral disarmament can happen. I think that the reason I think the types of patent provisions that are in GPL v3 are so useful is that it hints towards unilateral disarmament, because the more contributions IBM, HP, Microsoft, whoever is making to open source, they're licensing their patent claims under GPL, and they're required to be allowed to contribute and distribute. So the more they contribute to that, the better off we are. And I won't be surprised to see Microsoft trying to bisect the community they've tried already at the GPL level, and that wasn't successful. I'm sure they will try to bisect at the V2 level now, because they're going to get a good reading of Section 7 of V2 and be able to say, oh, well, there's no patent. We don't think the implicit patent grant is there. We're happy to cooperate under V2, but not V3. That's very likely to happen. But on the good side of that equation, places like IBM are not afraid to contribute to V3, and IBM's the biggest software patent holder in the world. That's at least hopeful.
Nice. Now, if I take this audio and extract a written article and run it by both of you first, so I don't quote something that you didn't really want to be part of that quote, is that okay?
I'm happy to. My firm represents Microsoft, so I can make it safe. I don't personally.
Only quote me about the Microsoft stuff.
Now, can you and I still do a little brightish? Thanks for hanging out.
If you want to do a video with me, I've got to do a couple things in 20 minutes. You want to do him for a while, and then I can come back? You want to do it here?
Where are you going to go? And I'll come to you. You going downstairs?
I'm just going to probably go to the bathroom, go to the speakers lounge, get something to eat, and then
I'll come to the speakers lounge and grab you when we're done.
Okay.
Hang out there and relax.
I'll meet you down there.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll see you there.